I am discovering me. Discovering me. My identity was hidden, taken from me, long before my ancestors began hanging from trees. The serpent, he was the real thief, deceiving my sister Eve. He made me forget I was royalty. My father is a king. I am the daughter of the everlasting, loving, omniscient three. He came to give me life. This world wants to take it away. He never intended for it to be this way. Free will, a blessing and a curse. Say my name. My life matters. God said it first. Discovering me. Redefining my identity. Made fearfully and wonderfully, flaws and all, my destiny was altered when I heard his call. I can't see where I'm going, but I know what I'm leaving behind. My faith is blind, lamps at my feet as I shoulder his load. I feel light, I see life as I walk the Samaritan road. Hello everyone, it's Nori here, and today I want to talk to you about Anchor by Spotify. It's the easiest way to make a podcast with everything you need all in one place. So Anchor has tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. The music that you hear on my podcast, when I have to edit people's conversations on my podcast, I do it all on the Anchor app. When hosting on Anchor, you can distribute your podcast on listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. There are about 8 or 10 different places you can post your podcast just using Anchor. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. And best of all, it's totally free. So if you are interested in starting a podcast, I suggest that you download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, everyone. This is Nori, your host of the Discovering Me podcast. And today I am excited to introduce my sister in Christ, but my sister nonetheless, Julia Jack. So I'll go ahead and let Julia introduce herself.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for letting me join, Nori. I'm so excited about your podcast, your purpose, your core. And, I always say we've got to share this with people because people think they're really alone.
Right.
So it's nice to learn how to discover ourselves, especially as women. But my name is Julia Jack, like Nori mentioned, and I am an architect by education, and I'm licensed now, which we can talk about a little bit how I got from one end to the other, which wasn't as linear as it seems. And I do have a podcast called F50 Women because they're a little bit later than you, Nori. I had that moment where I had to discover myself, and it was just like, something's got to happen, and you get tired. So I'm excited to be here. What else can I tell you? I love God. I have 5 children. We're a blended family, so that's a whole lot of drama and wonderful things in there as well. But yeah, so I'm just thankful to be here, and hopefully your audience will get to know me a little bit better as we chat, and I'll get to know you a little better, and the world will just be a better place.
Awesome. I love that. So I wanted to first ask you about your journey to get to F50 Woman and what that looked like and what started that for you.
Yes. Okay. Well, that started around the 50 mark. So right now I'm about 53 and a half or 3/4, somewhere around there. But just before my 50th birthday, my father passed away. He was 78. And though that's a pretty good amount of time to live, it was still, one, it's your dad. And so anyone who's lost their father knows that when your father passes away, it's almost like the world gets a little less safe somehow. Even though he was sick when he passed away, but we weren't expecting him to pass. So it was, he was healing, and then we thought he was getting better. And so he passed away. Then about 6 months later, that was just before Christmas, December 19th, 2017. And then 6 months later, it was my 50th birthday. And, I had been in my career for many, many years. I had been in and around architecture, but I felt like I was flatlined. I wasn't really going anywhere. Things in my personal life were just continually frustrating year after year after year. And so when it got to this point, it was almost like the brakes or something went off and I said, my father was 78, I'm 50. these first 50 years, you know, I look at my children and I remember when they were babies, and all of a sudden now they're grown people driving cars, going to colleges, moving out. And those 50 years went by like nothing.
Yeah.
And so I said, if I only have 25, say, more years left, what am I doing? I don't have not one more second to waste. And it got to a point, and at that point, you know, you're just so frustrated, you know, you're stuck. And so I put myself through what I call is a discomfort challenge. And so I did things to make myself uncomfortable, just small things and big things. And through all that, I had this aha moment, and I just realized that, you know, the glass ceiling is a real thing for some people, but for me, I was running into myself. I was just, and again, it's amazing because it all felt like it surrounded my father. So my father was so intelligent. He had a PhD in chemistry. He had a master's in economics. He could learn anything. He taught himself 3 languages. He was just the smartest man on the planet. And in my family growing up, I felt like he had all the power. He was the man in the house, and everybody did what Dad said. And so as I grew up, I really tried to be like my dad, tried to be masculine, tried to be strong, tried to be smart, tried to be successful. Even I know some of his advice was, when you go into the meeting, okay, so now you're in management. No, now you go into the meetings, you got to let them know who's boss. You know, get in there and just kind of tell them off. And it just wasn't me. So I came to that point in time where I realized that's just, none of this is me. And so I had a couple of realizations. One, you know, it's okay to be gentle, loving, encouraging. It's okay to want good things for people and not, you know, be on a construction site and not have to be throwing curses everywhere and being hard and mean. So I realized, you know, the feminine qualities were powerful qualities. And the feminine qualities were who I am. I'm just naturally that way. Makes my husband crazy, but I love to encourage my children. So when they do things wrong, yes, you can do that. Yes, you can. This is what we should do. I just focus on the positive. I don't know why. That's just good. Who I am. Yeah. So I just accepted that is who I am. I'm not my father. He's an amazing person. There was only one him, and it's not me.
Right.
And then what was the other thing? I can't remember what the other thing I was going to mention. But yeah, so I think it was just accepting that I was who I was.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and then the other thing I realized, okay, so if I have 25 years left in my life, what am I going to do with it? So at this point, I got to a point where I was like, I'm out of architecture. I'm not doing it. I'm going to go sell jewelry. I mean, I don't know if you saw me on Facebook, but I was selling jewelry. I was done. I'm going to do something feminine, silly, and something completely different. But then I looked back and I said, you know what, Julia? There's a lot of women, specifically Black women, who are trying to get into architecture, trying to get in construction, design, all these types of fields. So if you leave after 20-something years of experience, if you leave, who is going to help them get in the door?
Right.
So I just said, you know what? I'm going to be who I am and pursue my passion and my purpose. And part of that is helping the younger women to get in the door. And so I can't help them get somewhere if I'm not willing to do it. So that's when I said, I'm going to get my architectural license. I'm just going to go for it. So that year I sat down and I studied, and by the end of the year I finished all those 7 exams, and I had my license. And it felt good because it was, you know, when you go to architecture school, that's the goal, to get your license.
Right.
So I finally did it at 50, and so, you know, I went through it. Like you probably know, it's a process.
Yeah.
And so I went through all that, and I actually sat down and I wrote down for myself a personal brand statement. That's what I call it. So that came out of, an organization had asked me to write my biography for a diversity and inclusion type thing. So I actually sat down and I wrote it, and it was very much like reading over my life.
Wow.
And I realized my parents were West Indian. I was born in Canada. I came to the United States. I lived in a community that was very not diverse. I was a different culture, so I had to learn how to assimilate. I went to architecture school, and through my career, I went through different things: construction, interior design. That my career sort of mirrored my life in terms of needing to understand diversity and different people in different
Right.
settings. So, I just realized, what? And I'll give you my personal brand statement. So my personal brand statement is, I am the daughter of diversity, here to change the world one woman at a time by encouraging everyone I meet to build unshakable character and do extraordinary things.
That's beautiful.
So, and the unshakable character and extraordinary things really comes from God, because, the world is crazy.
Yeah.
And even as we turn 50, you think, and if you hear women who turn 50, they get to be all set in certain areas. I'm good. I don't worry about being fat anymore. I love myself. And we have this sort of empowerment. However, we start to get to the point where we just fade to the side. People don't really care about what you look like. You just sort of disappear. But look at all 50 some odd year, 50, 60, 70 years of life.
Yeah.
Lessons you've learned, things you've gone through, places you've been, rooms you're in that other women or men are trying to get into. And so don't take that to your grave. I mean, the Bible tells us that older women teach the younger women, the ways they should live.
Yeah.
So it's our gift and our responsibility to give back to the younger women. So this is sort of, hopefully everybody can understand. It feels like it's like a cyclone. So I'm talking about it. But it was just all sort of an explosion of all these different things, and really just trying to find out, why am I here? This can't be it. I can't just be here to live and die. And so that's how all that came about.
That's beautiful. I love your story. That's beautiful. I think that I followed your whole story, so you don't have to worry about the cyclone.
Okay.
I think that it'll definitely inspire so many people, because I know for me and my generation in general, I feel like we're all kind of like, okay, I don't really want to do this one thing forever that I don't really care for, and then what? And so I think that what you're talking about is so powerful and so true, because we do need your wisdom. We need your advice. We need your guidance, because we're just like, okay, I don't want to do that and I don't want to do that, but what am I going to do? And we don't necessarily see how big the world can be, and we don't see the different avenues that we can take. And we won't be able to see that until we either talk to someone who's been there already, or just kind of figure it out and fumble along the way. But I think we should tap into those resources, tap into those people that have already done the things.
Yes.
And so I love your message behind, like, you're not done yet. And so what would you say, like, is your goal with that? Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to inspire people to?
Yeah, I've been thinking about this often. I would like to, my hope is to have a collection of women. Every time I think about it, I visualize myself like you collect shoes, or you collect pencils, or you collect dolls and things. I just want to collect women. I just want to have a community where there's just so much wisdom to tap into, like you said. I want to do that. Where do I go? Oh, she can help you with that. My finances are falling apart. Where do you go? I want to do that. So that's what I'm hoping, to actually build a community. And I pray that it will be a diverse community. So there'll be Asians and Indian people and Native American people and Black people and white people and European people. I just want a place where we can actualize this whole idea of diversity and perspective. And so I don't know how this is going to happen, but I just put it in the hands of God, and I say, if you want it to be, then it'll be. If not, then it would have been fun.
So, that's really cool.
So yeah, and I really, really hope to help women over 50, not just to be good in your own skin, but to really have a bigger vision and to come out and change the world. Sort of be elder women, be not leaders in terms of having to be in the front of things, but really be that the the wisdom in the community, have a community again where, the older women are helping and teaching and training and supporting and giving and, sort of like a community full of grandmas.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that so much.
Really help. Yeah. And then as we're 50 and over, don't just think that you're good. There's so much more character to build. There's so much more for you to do for yourself. You haven't reached a point where your mind is right or your character is right or your attitude is right. Don't just grow up and say, well, I'm an old grumpy person. That's just who I am. No, that's not who you are. That's not who God designed you to be.
Right.
He designed you to be so much better. So, yeah. So the dream is kind of wide and big but we'll see what happens.
That's really cool. It sounds like a mentorship program, kind of like where you can kind of set people up with where you want them, and there's like different areas. That's really cool. Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the same thing with my podcast. It's like I started it and I have this vision for like wanting to work with teens and wanting to do all these amazing things, but like right now we're just going to focus on the podcast, and it's like I need to learn how to meet people and just different things, different different tools that I'm utilizing in order to be able to actually get to where I'm going, to figure out how to do those things. Because I'm like, okay, I always have really big visions, but I don't really know the steps on how to get there.
Right, yes, which is good, because sometimes the steps formulate and the road splits off, and then you find out what people are needing, and then you'll channel that. Yeah,
exactly. The wisdom is learned along the way.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So what would you say? I know you were inspired to do this because you were turning 50 and you were like, okay, I need to change my life. But like, what made you want to change it? Like, what was it? Were you like, what sparked that for you?
I was having a lot of personal challenges, some personal life challenges, some crises and some frustrations. And when the same thing keeps happening to you, year and year and year and decade after decade, you start to think, okay, so if that keeps happening to me, it can no longer be them. There's something wrong with me.
Right.
So that's the moment I got to. There's something that I am or am not doing that I have to do or not do to make this situation change.
Right.
Because if you're waiting for the world to change or you're waiting for other people in your life to change, well, keep waiting and get a bucket of ice cream or popcorn. Right. So I just said, you know what? It's really me. It's me who has to change. So I just went about changing me. And the only person we can really change is ourselves.
Right.
And that was pretty much it.
That's cool. It reminds me of the Michael Jackson song, The Man in the Mirror.
Yes. You know what? Somebody mentioned that to me the other day.
Oh, really?
Just the same way. I don't know who it was, but I'm going to have to listen to that song again.
That's what it reminds me of, because it's like you can't, you can't do anything until you start working on whatever it is that you need to work on in order to get where you want to go, because otherwise you're just going to keep doing it's like a hamster on a wheel. If you just keep running in the same direction, you're never going to go anywhere.
You're never going to go anywhere. Running the same treadmill, the same direction with the same pace. Over and over again.
Exactly.
Yes, for sure. And then you imagine if we all, it's such an easy, simple concept, but seems so complicated because we're so either self-focused or outward-focused, I'm not sure. But imagine if we all did that. So if you and I and everybody else said, I'm going to take responsibility for me, and I'm going to make sure that I do what's right, and that I am, my character is right, and my behavior is right, my thoughts and ideas are correct, or maybe not my thoughts and ideas, but my attitudes are correct. Everybody in that circle or on the earth would be doing what's right, and then that would affect the other person well. So I don't know. It seems simple, but I don't know why we won't do it.
I think it's because you're fearful that you're going to get cheated in some way, and then you'll be hurt or taken advantage of, or you're trying to do everything. So it's like those two ends. It's like you over exert yourself, or you don't have time to focus on the small part that you're supposed to do, or you're just like, but what if I do that and then so and so doesn't respond this way? Well, then it would have been a
Yes.
waste. And it's like, no, it's not a waste because
Yeah.
maybe you doing that would inspire that person to do something different as well. And I
Yes.
think that that's something that I'm learning is I just need to focus on the small piece that is mine and
Yes.
do my best to do all the things and not be tainted by the negativity or by feeling like I lost something or that I'm going to get the short end of the stick because at the end of the day, God is in control
Yeah.
and I'm trusting him. And so if he's allowing it to happen, then hey, maybe I'll learn something by getting the short end of the stick, you know?
Right.
And
Yes.
I think that that's not always easy
No.
because
No, it's not.
I have to
Yeah.
keep reminding myself lately, like, don't grow weary in doing good because I can just feel like, why am I always the one? And why do I always have to do this? And it can just feel
Yes.
so like I'm always the one doing the right thing. But I know that there's other people doing the right things too. Maybe I'm just not seeing them. And I know I'm doing
Right.
things wrong too. So,
Yes. It is. It's wearisome.
yes.
Yeah. It's a challenge. It's a race.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a battle. Yeah.
And so, what advice would you give to other women who are either turning 50 or who are after 50? What advice would you give them to go after their thing?
I would say read your own biography is my first piece of advice. So I would sit down and literally write out where you were born, where you came from, how you were raised, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you did in between, what the jobs that you did, whether you liked them, how did you behave in the jobs, to really understand what you've been through and how that formed you and whether that what forming was good or bad. Did you lose part of yourself in it or did you discover parts? And just really understand your own journey so you can understand who you are, how you got there, and what's next.
Hmm.
Because you can keep going forward, sort of blinders on, and you're going to end up, like you said, on that same treadmill running forward. Or you can say, okay, you know what? I think I want to step a little to the right because I've been doing the left this whole time, and I'm not supposed to be on the left. It doesn't feel good.
Right.
So that would be my first piece of advice, and discover something about yourself. I know I was in a room of women talking to them about writing your own biography. And there was one woman in the room and she said, I am a XYZ person. And the way she kept saying it, it was almost like somebody had told her she was that,
Wow.
or that was the way she had survived something
Right.
by telling herself, this is who I am. So you have to, and maybe it's a point you get to, because I don't know how old, she wasn't quite 50 yet. But you have to be able to go through the smoke screen and get rid of the masks and what the world thinks you should be or what your parents thought you should be or what you did because of or what was done unto you, and really see what lessons you learned and see what the story adds up to. And you may realize, I was born for that,
Right.
whatever it is. So that would be my first biggest piece of advice. And take the time to do it. If it takes a month or 2 years or a year, I know for me it was about a year-long process between when I hit the wall and I was like, oh, okay, this is it.
Right.
This is it.
I love
And
that.
I had a career coach, and she had an aha moment with her because she said, who God made you to be or your gift is not the same as what you do for a living. Those two things don't have to be, because I was like, I'm an architect, so I have to be like this. And she was like, your gift and what you do for a living don't have to match. But figuring out how those two diverged and what my purpose was, now it informs everything I do. I could be a dancer or a doctor. My purpose is the same, no matter where I go. So that would be
beautiful.
my advice. And yeah.
And how would you say your faith has inspired this journey? Like, what have you learned?
Yes. I think, let me see. I almost feel like it was the other way around. I love superhero movies. So, in some of those superhero movies, or old karate movies, it gets to a point where you're either beaten down, you're completely beaten down. I know we saw the Buddhist Palm movie. I don't know if anybody out there ever saw it, but basically this one character literally got his face beat into the floor.
Oh, wow.
And his face was squished. You know, some of these
Yeah.
karate movies get extreme.
Uh-huh.
His face was crushed. And this was a guy who wanted to learn what's called the Buddhist palm. And he since a little boy. And at this moment, this big karate master just pummeled him. And then, long story short, what came out of that is his chi, or his super energy, was released, and he could do this Buddhist palm. And then he ended up beating that character. But I felt like that was the moment for me where I had been crushed and frustrated, and I had so many days of that snotty, ugly girl cry. You know, that sobbing, ridiculous, snotty nose cry.
Mm-hmm.
That I literally hit the bottom of my ship, or the floor. There was nowhere else to go.
Right.
And I think at that point, I just said, you know what, God, please. Days. I said, God, just help me. Please. I was just like willing to do anything. Just help me. You get to the point where you're like, I don't care. Take my house, take my car. I don't care. I don't care. Just help me. And I know I went days and days like that. And finally, we have this prayer group at my job, and this woman who leads this prayer group is just so unapologetically God-fearing that it had me standing there like, oh. And she was like that at work. You go to her desk and you say, oh my gosh, this paperwork. And she'd be like, no, God is in control. God was just on her lips all the time, everywhere. I don't care what meeting she is in. I don't care what room she's in. And it just made me pause. I was like, wait a minute. What am I doing? And her love for God is so powerful that it's just lighting other people on fire. And so I don't really know what happened between being on my knees and saying, God, well, now I'm talking about it. Maybe that's what happened. It was, where I was just on my knees, like, God, help me. I'm willing to give anything.
Yeah.
And then this happened. And I feel like that, like I explained to you with the superhero, just lit everything on fire. And I was like, God is the only reason I'm here. And somehow, when you just get it?
Yep.
I'm like, yeah, okay, I get it. And that's the best I can explain it. It's almost like that chi releasing moment where you're like, whatever you were holding on to, whatever, I don't want people so much to know I'm a Christian so they won't, be uncomfortable with me, or there are places where you wouldn't be too Christian to make other people comfortable. And even like I was explaining to you with my personality, I was like, yeah, but I want to try to be strong and come off strong. And you know what? Now I'm like, you know what? I'm happy. So if you don't like it, it's too bad. If you don't think I can leave the group because I'm too happy, that's too bad too. I don't care. So I think that's what happened as I'm talking through it and looking back.
That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I think so much of what you said, I'm just like holding on to little parts. I will probably go back and listen to this again and write down a couple things because I just feel like there's so much that you shared that I'm like, yes, like I need to remember that. Like I need to hold on to these things. Like even as you're talking about the woman at work, like before my whole health issue, I was at another job and I was miserable. I was just like, I hate being here. I cried to and from work every single day. And sometimes I cried in the bathroom while I was there because I was I just did not like being there. The environment was awful. It just wasn't a happy place. And so as you're talking, I feel like that was my, like, I was like, I need to get out of here. No matter what happens, I cannot spend, like, I remember my coworkers being like, oh, you have great benefits and like your 401k. And I'm like, I don't care. I will start over. Like, if I have to work until I'm 70, it won't be here. Like, I don't care. And so like, just hearing you say that, I'm like, I feel like that's what that was for me. It was just like, I don't know, like I had been trying to figure out what my passion and what my purpose was since 2017. And I didn't leave this job until 2020. And even now, I'm still not even fully sure, like, what direction I'm going in. I'm finding out little bits and pieces of myself. And even, like, when you talked about how that woman that you were speaking to had said that I am this. Like growing up, like I was always dramatic and I was always overly emotional and clingy. And so for the longest, those were parts of me that I constantly pushed away and was like, nope, I don't want to be that. I don't want anybody to know that I have any emotions because they're too much. And recently I've just kind of started embracing them again and being like, no, I'm a big feeler. Like I just feel things and that's okay.
Yes.
It's not negative. It's not necessarily positive. It's just who I am.
Yes.
And I think tapping into and being okay with that has allowed me to be there for other people, has allowed me to be emotional with them and empathetic because I do literally feel what they're going through. I'm like, I get it. I feel where you're at. And so I've started embracing those parts of me that I previously told myself were bad and negative. And that's when I started to kind of see like, oh, this is where I can be utilized. And this is how I've always loved talking to people. I was told to shut up so much as a kid because they were always like, you talk too much. And so now that I'm doing the podcast and I'm meeting people and I'm asking questions, I'm like, oh, this is something that I enjoy doing. Like I enjoy having conversations with people and asking them about their lives.
Right. Yes. That's the sweet spot.
Yes. And so I don't know what this is going to turn into, but I love doing it. And I love talking to you too. I feel like this conversation has been just really affirming for me and also eye-opening in so many ways. So thank you so much for being so vulnerable and open with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was incredible, and I'm excited to see where your journey takes you. And, you know, I'm a little bit jealous, honestly, and I know jealousy is sin. So I'm sorry, God, I didn't mean it, but I'm just going to confess, okay? But that you found it so early, because that is so great, because then see how much more God can do with you and the rest of your life, and everyone you touch as you go on the way. So I pray that God will bless that journey and really click you into your purpose quickly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And my goal is to try to teach it to even younger people so that they'll get it even sooner.
Yeah.
So hopefully God will use me in that way.
Yeah. And you know, as I was talking to more and more women, I started to think, well, maybe everybody needs their chi releasing moment or their bottom of the bowl surrender to God moment. I don't know. I hope not, but I wonder. You know?
Maybe it would help because I feel like even if you like, so I've been looking at a lot of different people in the Bible and it's like they needed that moment. Like right now I'm studying out Nehemiah and it wasn't until he like looked back and was like, oh, like my city is falling apart. Like it's in ruins and everything is a mess. I need to go take care of that. And until that, he was just kind of like, you know, he had a good job. He was doing his thing. Like he was just living life. And so I think that that's part of how God works a lot of times is like he lets people get to where they need to get in order to get where they need to go.
Yes, so they can get it. And, completely not doubt that that's where they need to go. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Discovering Me podcast. Just wanted to let you know that we will be going on a short break for the month of April. In the meantime, you're able to keep up with Discovering Me on Instagram at discoveringme.nori and Facebook at discoveringme.nori and on TikTok at discoveringme.nori. So keep in touch with us on social media and we'll see you back in May. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Discovering Me. I hope that you are inspired and spurred on toward a deeper connection with God. If you're looking for a church in the Southern Connecticut area, search Southern Connecticut Church of Christ. And don't forget, tune in next Monday for a new episode. And always remember to faithfully pursue a life of passion.